All right, let's move over to the flyweight division now, where we got Alex Perez coming in at minus 140, going up against Sumudaerji, who comes in at plus 120. Now, Perez is coming off of a big knockout victory over Charles Johnson from earlier this year. I picked him that night. He was my dog of the night play as well, but even I was surprised that he was able to get the knockout win that night, as he was able to repeatedly land and hurt Johnson and eventually get him out of there in that first round. Now, Perez's, run obviously does not look the greatest, especially when he was in that stretch where he went 1-5 through a 6-fight period. The only win that he had in that run was against Matthias Nicolau, but he was coming up short against high-level opponents and looking decent in some of those spots, right? The Muhammad Mokaev fight, he lost that fight, but there were moments where he was having a lot more success than people expected him to. The Tatsuro Taira fight, I thought he was winning that fight until he injured himself in the second round of that fight. The Asu Amabayev fight, that fight was 1-1 going into the third round until he eventually got caught in that guillotine and was forced to tap. This guy, originally known for being a wrestle-heavy fighter, smothering opponents and really working them down on the mat. But he's done a great job in terms of evolving his striking game, so much so that he's going out there and knocking out guys like Matthias Nicolau and even Charles Johnson, who on paper should have the striking advantage over him. It's just his aggression. He puts guys into uncomfortable positions, constantly crashing forward with big shots, loves utilizing the calf kick as well, and then he can mask those strikes with takedowns, which really helps him get to his wrestling, and from there he has decent top control as well, and a pretty good submission game as well. He's a guy that has shown insane durability as well throughout his UFC career, never been knocked out, or at least never lost by legitimate knockout, right? The only one that he has, I believe, on his record was that one. He has two on his UFC record. The one was the injury that he had to Tatsuro Taira, and the other one was that ground and pound TKO finish that he suffered at the hands of Joseph Benavidez, which is now 8 years ago. And he's never suffered a knockdown, which is something else to take into consideration. It's just been his submission defense that has caused him issues at times, and that's where he needs to tighten things up a little bit more if he hopes to get closer and closer to title contention, although time is running out a little bit considering that he is 34 years old. Now, this weekend, he's going up against the slick striking stylings of Sumudaerji, who's currently riding a 3-fight winning streak. This is the first time he tied his longest winning streak now with 3 wins. If he gets another one, it will be his longest winning streak in the UFC. He's gone out there, swept Jesus Aguilar on the scorecards, did a great job. It was a mature performance from him to stick and move against a power puncher like Aguilar and a guy that was going to be looking to take that fight to the ground. He's very sniper-like with his accuracy, with his distance, his kicks, and his punching. It's clear his work with Team Alpha Male is really starting to work out for him. The Raposo fight was just a bad game plan from Raposo, and Raposo really struggled to get to his game there. The Borjas and Aguilar fights were fights against power punches with not the cleanest technique, and that's where we saw Sumudaerji really take advantage of those guys. The biggest issue in his game seems to be his defensive grappling, as long as he's facing somebody with a good enough grappling game, right? Like we saw Tim Elliott get to the grappling without too much issue. Raposo didn't have the best striking to try to set up the grappling, which is where I think he really struggled to try to get to his game. But it's really the striking of Sumudaerji that separates him from his opponents. Not a lot of knockout power on his strikes. I think the last knockout win that he has, just off the top of my head, was against Zaruk Adashev, a fight where he had a huge height and reach advantage and he was able to snipe that guy from distance. But he hasn't really had the best success in terms of finding finishes as of late. But he's very good. A very sharp striker, stinging power on his punches, but nothing devastating. And I think that allows him to kind of keep his distance against a lot of opponents. Now, here against Alex Perez, this is easily the toughest fight that Sumudaerji has had in recent fights. This is one that, I think he'll struggle to kind of manage his distance, especially with the aggressiveness of Perez and the durability of Perez. If Perez's durability holds up as it normally has, he should be able to go out there and crowd the space of Sumudaerji, and whether that's with kicks, whether that's with power punches, or even mixing in the takedowns behind it, I fully expect Perez to really dictate the pace of this fight, and I think it can lead to another dominant finish for Perez as well. I love this minus 140 number on him. I think he's really turned the corner. I think that knockout victory over Charles Johnson has got his confidence sky high. Even in some of those losses, his his confidence has to be high considering how much success he was having against a lot of these guys, and even against Tatsuro Taira, right? A guy that just fought for the title and was very close to winning it as well until Van was able to finish him in the 5th round of that fight. So Perez is still very skilled. He has a lot of promise still. I get he's 34, but stylistically speaking, this is as difficult a fight for Sumudaerji as his fight with Tim Elliott was. Tim Elliott had not a lot of issues in terms of getting Sumudaerji to the ground and then eventually was able to get to a submission spot. Perez could potentially do the same thing here, but I think Perez comes with an even more dangerous striking game than Tim Elliott had. And I think he's going to go out there, crowd the space of Sumudaerji, smother him, and eventually find his way to a finishing position. So I'm going to go Alex Perez inside the distance.